Welcome to the channel Humanocracy, the Future of Talent. In today's episode we have Miquel Colet with us for the second time on this channel. For those who still don't know Miquel, he's been at Vivia for 17 years, with presence in more than 100 countries. Vivia creates beautiful atmospheres using lighting designed to generate meaningful responses that have a positive impact on the human experience. Miquel currently holds the position of CEO for the States and Canada, not only because of his professional background, but also because of his values as a person. I wanted to bring him back so that we can talk about the qualities of true leaders for the new world. So Miquel, welcome to the channel Humanocracy, the Future of Talent. We wanted to have you here again because your previous interview was the most watched on the channel, so really appreciate your time.
Thank you very much, Carla. Real pleasure being here with you again. I'm looking forward to it.
We live in unprecedented moments in history which come together with a total transformation of politics, industries, businesses and societies. The terrible situation in Ukraine is breaking news, and we have been able to see very different leaders at the forefront of this conflict. What do you understand by being a leader?
So I think that first and foremost, a leader needs to be able to provide a vision and direction to the group or to the company. If we're talking in a company environment, vision and direction are very important. I think that also at the end needs to be able to do what's best for the group, for the team, not for himself. And I think now you were putting this example about two different leaders, and I think that's a clear example. It's important not to fall to the temptation of doing what's best for you and put the group first. I think also another thing that I believe is important, and some people struggle because it's not easy, is to take difficult decisions when you have to, and have difficult conversations when you have to. Nobody loves that, but it needs to be done, right? At the end of the day, it's important that the leader, as the main idea, needs to be clear that he needs to do what's right and what's fair, no matter what. What's right and what's fair for the company and for the group and for the team. One thing I want to say is I see a lot of people thinking that being a leader means being well liked by all, or being the most popular. I think that's a different thing. No, it's not being a leader. That's being a celebrity. That's being popular. That's being funny. I know that's something else. But people want to be liked, and they usually confuse the two ideas. All right, they want the good part without having to take the difficult decisions and putting the group before themselves, right? And just to finish, there's one thing that nobody talks about that I also believe is important. A leader needs to know when it's time for he or she to step down for the greater good of the team or the company, right? And needs to make sure that he does it in a way that guarantees the future success of the team after he's gone. So, I mean, long story short, I think those are more or less, the ideas that come to mind when I think of a leader, right? Or the things I try to remind myself.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think there is, I would say, a threat to all of us that when we are in power or we are leaders of a team, we become greedy to some extent, and we want to occupy that position for as long as possible, and maybe that's not the best for the team at that time.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a natural human, tendency.
Yeah.
But it's important to keep it in mind, not to fall for that trap.
Completely. And speaking of conflicts, I have seen many times in organizations that in order to avoid conflict and rotation, they try to make stars out of many people who do not necessarily deserve it. Especially in a market with a shortage of talent, losing people in key positions can create a real problem. And more so if they join your competitor. Have you also observed this problem of having to make a person believe that he or she is a star so that they do not leave the organization?
For sure. Obviously, we've all live that situation. Of course, everybody's important in an organization, and everybody is necessary. Everybody is important, but I think it's also very important for the leader to really be honest, and if you really want to help that person, you really need to help them in their journey process of awareness and understand whether they are a star yet or not yet, and what they need to do to become one. As a leader, if you want to have credibility and if you want to have some sort of moral authority, you need to do that. You cannot be appeasing everybody to be liked so they don't leave. You don't want to be avoiding conflict at all cost, because that's not sending the right message. You really want the team to see that you're doing what's right, again, in a professional manner and in a positive manner, but not always you can give a trophy to everybody. You know?
Yeah, I think it's very important what you just said about being liked, especially for junior managers. We want to be liked somehow, right? So I think it's very important that you also project that image of being someone credible and having certain authority, because that's healthy as well for the team.
Yeah, I mean everybody wants to be liked, but at the end of the day, if you accept and want this role, you need to do what you need to do.
Yeah, what needs to be done. I take that advice. And we are facing the movement led by the USA, the Great Resignation. You live in the States and probably you are very familiar with that, where people do not want to be subjugated by a payroll with KPIs, measuring every minute of their time and pressure for results. Are KPIs needed in your opinion? And how should the KPIs be approached?
Yeah, well, the Great Resignation, I think that it's been a process where people have been reassessing their priorities because of all the things that we've been going through in the past couple of years, and because it was something that was actually kind of going to happen anyway. It was building momentum in society anyway. And it's come at a time of growing demand for talent, and that has created this gap between supply and demand that obviously has many organizations now struggling for talent, right? Regardless, I think KPIs are still useful. I think yes, they need to be short, sweet, and simple, but I think it's still a good way that helps provide a common direction and goal for the whole group, for the whole organization. I think it also helps to maintain everybody accountable, keep everybody accountable. As far as what's the contribution towards the progress of the group and what's the value that you're bringing to the group or to the table. Yeah. So I still believe in KPIs. Of course, they need to be reasonable and manageable and simple, and a short list. There's still a place for them, I think.
I really like that idea that everyone should know what they bring to the table, what is their added value. And a leader, I think, should be able to keep them accountable, because it's good for them in the end, not only for the organization, but also for the people.
Yeah. I think so.
Yeah. So what are the ingredients of a healthy organization? I know this is not an easy question, but what do you think in terms of values, culture, behaviors?
I think that the ingredients are many. I think it's a mix of things. It's got to be a mix of values, culture, behaviors, but also results. I think results are needed for the long-term sustainability of the group, of the company. So everybody needs to kind of try to provide that. Results also, let's not forget this, results also provide motivation and pride and accomplishment to the group. And I think that's very important. Everybody wants to be in a winning team. Mm. So a company that manages to deliver good results on a regular, makes their team proud, Mm. And I think that's important. Values, culture, and behavior, I think they're important, that they promote a collaboration, and team loyalty. I think those concepts and feelings can be very beneficial. This is something actually that we've been working here at Vivia for the last few years, specifically those goals, collaboration especially. So it's a mix of those things. It's a mix of those things, and it's not easy, as you said. It's not easy to accomplish, especially when you have an organization that's big or organization that has many years of inertia. Change those behaviors and those values. It takes time.
It really takes time. And do you think it's possible to keep pressure for results, being a competitive company in the market, thrive, but at the same time provide that kind of comfort and happiness to the employees? Or do you think those are two things that are contradictory with each other?
No, I think it can be done. I think it can be done. Of course, within certain parameters, right? There need to be clear boundaries. Okay, you want to be flexible. You have to be flexible. It's the right thing to do, right? You have to be flexible, but also for the good of the team and for the good of the employees, you want to have results. There's no way around this. If you don't have results, everything else, at some point is going to go by the window. So I think it can be done.
Yeah. And when it comes to recruitment, do you think the culture of a company should be kind of reshaped with the people that join the organization as well, and it's evolving? Or should be kind of your DNA that is fixed and won't be changed?
I think that there needs to be an understanding and a conscious decision by the leaders of the company on what type of company do we want to be and what type of environment and culture do we want to have. And based on that, we need to try to attract and hire the right team. And once in place, you still need to try to nurture the right environment to make sure that those values and those behaviors remain in place and grow. So I think that it starts with a conscious decision, honestly. And you cannot be changing constantly based on whomever you have in the team on what your values or behavior is going to be, because then you will get lost pretty quick, I would think.
So this is kind of a pre-requirement of doing proper recruitment in the end?
I think so. I think you need to know what type of person, what type of professional you want to bring to the team. Make sure that it's going to be a good fit, and it's going to be a good fit with the rest of the team and with the culture and direction of the organization.
Great, fully agree. And sometimes I find myself with the challenge of having a person in the team who is doing well, has a leadership position, but you have to call him out for some reasons, but you also do not want to undermine that person. Yeah. So how do you do it? I find it very complicated.
It is complicated, you're right. And I think it has to do with what we were discussing before. It has to do, you need to try to help the person in their self-awareness process. Because at the end of the day, we all want to see ourselves as the hero of our own story, right? So we all have maybe an image of ourselves that's ideal, but not always entirely accurate, right? So the way I will go about this is just have a discussion and say, look, help them see that their actions, their decisions are straying from the ideal image of themselves or of himself that he has, or that he imagines that he is, or the ideal image that he wants to portray. Say, look, this decision here or this behavior here, people are going to see you this way, and I don't think that's exactly who you are. So you might want to reconsider, moving forward, how to portray yourself. Giving those type of examples and in that tone, I think helps. I've tried it sometimes, and I feel like it's been positive.
Yeah. Have you ever been in a situation where you had to face these kind of situations? I don't know, perhaps you received some uncomfortable feedback, and then you said, okay, you said to yourself, this might be right, this is something that I have to change?
Yes, of course. Yes. There's been several times where I've gotten feedback where it was not all positive, and thinking to myself, sometimes I've come to the conclusion that, well, yes, this is totally correct. I need to do something about it. Sometimes I've come to the conclusion that, well, there was a reason why I was doing that, but still, it's true that I might be able to do it in a slightly different way. But honestly, I think the biggest challenge and the best thing you can do for yourself is not wait for feedback. I think it's more important to make an effort in trying to be in self-monitor yourself and being self-aware every day. All the decisions that you take, all the interactions that you have. Think at the end of the day, how did that go? Was that the right thing to do or say? Did I behave myself in line with the ideal image of who I think I am, or who I want to be, or who I would like to be? Sometimes the answer is no. And then, okay, at least you see it, you're aware of it, and try to do better next time, which is still not easy, but that's the best you can do.
Something special about your story is that you've kind of studied yourself and also the people around you, and you came up with a lot of conclusions that help you to continue or thrive in the right direction, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's true. When I was younger, or much younger than now, I found ways that people were being successful that I wasn't, and I was able to identify my weak points or my shortcomings, and definitely that helped a lot. I'm not gonna say it was easy. It's not easy. It's still not easy, but it's the tools that we have. That's what we can do.
And do you have any tips for the audience on how to become self-aware? Because I feel we all go, on autopilot mode, in rushing from one thing to another. So how can we be better at being self-aware? If this is a precondition for becoming a good leader, how do you become self-aware? What are daily tips or things that you do that could help anybody that is listening to us?
In general, obviously, we are wired to try to tell a good story about ourselves, to ourselves, right? And not to see the negatives and the mistakes. And if we have them, to self-justify those mistakes and those negatives. I think that the first thing that you need to do is understand that, okay, this is how our brain works. It's not about you, it's not about your personality. Our brain works like that. It's a self-preservation tool that we have. So knowing that you need to make the extra effort to watch yourself every day, all day. And you need to define first exactly who you think you are, or who do you think you want to be. You need to have that idea very clear, very clear. If you want to write it, or repeat it to yourself every day, whatever you want to do, but you have to have it very clear. Knowing that your mind plays tricks on you, you have to understand that you are not that person. No matter what you think, you are not that person that you want to be. Your mind is playing tricks on you. Monitor everything you do every day. If you want, you can recap at the end of the day, or as you go through the day, take notes or mental notes. I actually take mental notes. I don't write it down. I take mental notes. And it's just you. So nobody sees this, nobody knows this. And understand where you are acting in a way that it does not convey that image. You need to be honest to yourself and brave. And yes, your image is going to be hurt a little bit, but you need to understand. I would say even get upset with yourself a little bit. Get angry and mad at yourself a little bit for making those mistakes, and that will help you commit to hopefully trying to make them a little less often tomorrow. Constant daily monitoring, having a clear idea of who you want to be, having a clear understanding that your mind is playing tricks on you. Watch yourself constantly, keep track, of all the things that are diverging from your ideal, and try to force yourself to do it. Try to force yourself.
Very clear roadmap, not easy, but simple. And I think it's very important, as you said, to have the clear direction on where are you going, and then you can reassess the rest.
Yeah, it's not easy, but it has to be done.
Yeah, it has to be done. That's the claim for this interview today. So, in a global world, most companies already have international teams with people from different nationalities, cultures, and beliefs. Do you think there is a universal understanding of what it means to be a leader or a good leader?
I think that like in everything, there's local and cultural differences on how a leader is expected to act or to be. I think that's always been true. But I also think that obviously these past few decades, societies and ideas and culture and values have been converging to some extent across the world and across countries and across cultures. So I think that in many places, the expectations of a leader are kind of becoming more and more similar. For sure, there's still differences and you need to adjust to that, but everything in general is becoming more and more similar across the world. So the answer is yes to both. Yes, there are differences, but they're becoming less and less every time, I would say.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And I think after this interview, we'll be able to convey a message where people understand what are the qualities that good leaders should have or how they should become in a way. So definitely agree with that statement.
Yeah.
How can such different people can be led under the same umbrella, in your opinion?
I think it all comes down to, of course, we already talked about having a common idea and a common goal, but that's not going to mean much if you don't have great communication, especially when you have different groups in remote offices and different cultures, different languages, different countries. Communication becomes even more important than usual. Of course, everybody loves email and it's more convenient, but when I say communication, I like to emphasize in person and face-to-face as much as possible. My own experience here at Vivia, working with remote teams and remote cultures, languages, countries, if we can have a in-person meeting, we make much more progress than if we have a video call. If we have a video call, we make much more progress than if we exchange emails. If you want to avoid misunderstandings and wasting your time and frustration on the different teams because of the lack of understanding, you need to over-communicate and do it as much as you can in person or face-to-face, or at least video call.
Yeah, I think having or being a good communicator applies to literally everything at work, at home, in your relationship. Do you have any tips for the audience on how do you communicate better, how it should be done?
So one thing I would say is, besides the setting, which is face-to-face, I think that solves all of the problems. One thing I would say is don't assume that just because you already communicated an idea or a message or a goal or strategy or whatever it is, or a decision, don't assume that it's already understood and accepted and remembered and executed. It needs repetition. It needs repetition and needs to be explained and reminded over and over again, sometimes from different points of view, sometimes in different ways. But I would say that when I was saying over communication, this is what I was referring to. Sometimes you really need to pound that message to make sure that everybody kind of understands the little details and that you overcome the inertia of the day-to-day and it's accepted.
Yeah, I think we all get mad in these kind of situations when you think the other person understood perfectly just because you said it 3 times, but then you realize that the other person doesn't remember absolutely anything of what you say.
And that's how our brains work. It's nobody's fault. It's how our brains work. It happens to me. So you have to be. If it happens to you, you need to understand that it's going to happen to the rest as well.
So clear messages and repetition, and do not assume that the other person understood what you said.
Okay,
clear. When making decisions, is it the leader who should make them, or is it a joint decision with the team? Because it's very common these days to have these, participative type of leadership where everyone gets to share their opinions, have a say. So what's your take on that?
I agree with that. I think the leader has to obviously have an understanding of the situation and of the challenges and of the strategy and of the options and scenarios available, and have a sense of what's going to be the best direction to take. But at the end of the day, I believe, and I practice that here at Vibia, that there needs to be a process where everybody needs to feel part of the decision, part of the discussion, for many reasons. Everybody loves being engaged in the discussion and the decision. If they're part of it, they'll feel like it's their own decision, and it's going to be easier for them to understand and remember that decision, and it's going to be easier for them to actually put it in place. I think also it helps the leader, who's going to have the last word, of course, at the end. It helps the leader overcome the many blind spots that we have. Because if you talk to the team, they all see different aspects of the organization that the leader doesn't see. It's impossible, right? So you get to put all those things on the table, see everything, and get usually to a decision that takes care of a lot of the challenges and situations. I've personally learned a lot taking decisions that way. I've learned a lot from a lot of people in the team, past and present, and I think that's part of our success. Honestly, I think that's the best way to do it. Yeah, collaboration and participation. Everybody wants to understand why decisions are made or taken. If I come up with a decision and I just communicate it, maybe the person will think, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Why is he deciding this now? If the person is part of the discussion on what's the situation, what are the options, and why we need to go with this in this direction, then even if it's not exactly what they would like, at least they understand what happened and why they're part of and they can accept it.
Yeah. To explain the why, it's very crucial, right, when making decisions. And there's a lot of controversy I find with the question whether a leader should be humble and vulnerable, or is actually not beneficial.
Well, it's part of the whole process, right? For a leader to be able to do that, he needs to be humble enough to listen, to be willing to listen to the team, and sometimes to go with decisions that are not what he would have done, right? Or maybe initially come up with a decision, and then after listening to the team and going through all the scenarios, realize that the other team member is right. So we're going to go with what this team member decided, not with what I decided. So you need to be humble at the end to listen to the team and change your mind if you have to. At the end of the day, one thing I always tell everybody is my goal here is to make sure that the company is successful. And it doesn't matter if I use my own ideas or your ideas. So I'd rather have the company be successful with your ideas than fail with my ideas. So
that's a very good point, and I don't think everyone is ready to accept that.
What's important is the end result. If the end result is positive, you did what you had to do. Your role as a leader was to have an end result, positive end result. You did what you had to do.
What about, I don't know if you've experienced this situation, but when you make a decision and in the end it was not the right choice, how do you face the team again and you explain that your decision was not the right one?
Yeah, nobody likes that. But given that the damage is done, I think if you want to maintain some of your credibility and moral authority, like we were saying before, you have to acknowledge that. You have to acknowledge that you made a mistake if you really say it that way, and you have to be ready to have that discussion again and change course. If you can do that, I think people can appreciate that. If you refuse to do that, that's when we have a problem, right?
And when we imagine a leader, sometimes we have the image of a person who never collapses, who can do anything, who does everything well. But how do transparency and authenticity fit in here?
Well, I understand. Obviously, there's a need to convey calm to the teams. You don't want to, have everybody in a frantic, state of mind. But sometimes projecting always an image of total control and certainty, it's not credible. It's not credible. I mean, at the end of the day, in the long term, people realize when you're just putting up a facade or a fake message, and that eventually leads to loss of trust in your messages. So I think that the leader needs to be transparent and authentic. And I mean, if we don't know something, we have to admit it. Okay, look, we have this. We're not sure yet how to deal with this. Let's work on it. Let's try to come up with a plan. Or if there is a problem, hey, we have this problem. This is what happened. Don't deny it. Admit it right away so we can all talk and come up with a plan that we all agree on, and nobody feels like there's a different reality than they're being told, because then it gets very distracting and it gets very demoralizing. Right?
Absolutely. I think transparency actually brings a strength into a team.
Yeah. You have to be transparent and authentic, not try to put up a fake facade, because it's not sustainable.
Yeah. And how much or how little does a leader have to be emotionally involved? It's a bit like doctors, right? I think to save lives, they can't have a very high involvement either. Otherwise, they can't work. So how is this emotional involvement managed?
I think this ties with what we were just saying. The leader needs to be authentic. Yeah. And in my opinion, I think that showing emotion is not always bad. It makes you human. It makes you relatable. It helps people engage with. And people need to see and feel that the leader cares about the mission, that cares about the group, about the team, about the company, about the results, and that he is fighting for them and fighting with them. So I think that showing emotion is not a bad thing. It's a good thing, of course, within certain parameters, but you need to show passion. You need to show passion for what you do and for your team. I think it's a good idea.
And how do you identify leaders in your team? How does one identify, good leaders?
Well, I think that to be a leader, not only you have to have those personality traits and characteristics and capacity, but you also have to be willing to be one. You have to be motivated to be one. You have to be wanting to be one. It has to be your desire, right? And you just need to pay attention to who wants to really take that role. And then if they complement that with the actual capabilities, that's what you need to identify. And then slowly but surely try to make sure that there's a professional career ahead of them and progress for them, right? So I look at motivation of all.
Okay. Then do you think a good leader is born or is made?
To some extent, I think a leader is born. I think it comes with your personality. I mean, you can become very knowledgeable of a certain area, a certain aspect, a certain industry, a certain topic, and you can learn that. And you have to learn that throughout your life. But to lead teams and to lead people, You have to have the drive in you. You have to have drive in you. And I don't know that the drive is something that you can easily teach or learn.
Very good answer. So, Miquel, I'm going to summarize for the audience the qualities that a true leader has to have. One thing would be do what is right and fair, credibility and authority, accountability, make others self-aware, communication, being humble, transparency, and emotional involvement. I'm not sure if you want to add any other to the list.
I think that all of the things that we said are related. All of those things are true. And like we just said, I think being able to engage with people and being curious and constantly learn and have the drive are also good things for being a leader. I know it's a long list of things, but it's worthwhile exploring and trying.
Absolutely. So, Miquel, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and for spending some time with us in the channel.
Thank you, Bella. My pleasure.